Michigan in October at the Women of Color STEM Conference. We had an amazing time meeting the Detroit students who are interested in STEM careers. Just visit STEMCityUSA.com and go to the Education and Discovery building. Once you enter the building, click on the globe for the STEM City World Auditorium. You can watch all our career day events. Today, I am joined by a group of student ambassadors who are excited to take you through today's journey. Joy, please share information about you and introduce our career day founders.
Hi, I'm Joy from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I am a 12th grade student attending Susquehanna Township High School. I enjoy working with technology, and that is why I like being a BEYA Stars and Stripes student ambassador. BEYA Stars and Stripes Career Day is streamed on STEM City USA, which is the BEYA Stars and Stripes founders. Dr. Tyrone Tamborn started BEYA while being a teen like us over 40 years ago. He is writing a book called Mediquake USA, soon to be released. Brigadier General Velma von Lilly he wrote, and one of the first 10 women generals in the U.S. Army. Lieutenant General Bruce Crawford, U.S. Army retired, and Vice Admiral Watt Davis, U.S. Navy retired, are our chairman and our chairman emeritus, and they serve as mentors to students and teens like us from all across the country. Over to you, Lieutenant Crawford.
Well, Joy, thanks so much. Always inspired by the great work that you and our other ambassadors do. So thank you for that. And welcome to everyone. This is our last one of these forums, inspiring forums of FY22. As we move into 23 and look back, what a series of inspirational speakers and what wisdom. And so as we think to the future, you know, one of my favorite quotes is actually by philosopher Will Craig, when he says, and we think broadly about why we're here today. He says, the purpose is the reason you're on this journey, but passion is the torch that lights your way. And so for everyone who's tuned in today, our purpose this morning is all about exposing you to information that really, really ignites a passion for a career in STEM. And so today we're honored to have yet another inspiring speaker. But just as importantly, a leader who's passionate about the thing that we're passionate about, and that's really investing in people, passionately investing in the next greatest generation of leaders. So as you think about today's presentation and the discussion and the inspirational feedback that you're going to get and insights, you should have one question, all right? And that one question should be, why not me? All right, why couldn't I achieve the same level of position and ability to really influence young people? And so thanks again to everyone for being here, and looking forward to yet another inspirational discussion. Over to you, Hope.
Thank you for those inspirational words, Lieutenant General Crawford. Hi, I am Hope Pagan, a Stars and Stripes STEM ambassador. Today it is my pleasure to introduce today's guest career professional, Mr. Christian Duffus, founder and CEO of Fonbnk, a distributed finance company. He is a graduate of Florida A&M University and the University of Virginia's Darden Graduate School of Business Administration. We're excited to learn from our speaker. Over to you, Mr. Christian.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me today. I have a short presentation, but I use that just to share a little bit about what I do. But first, I wanted to share sort of my background, as it might help you, inspire you as you think about your career in STEM. I originally from Jamaica. I grew up in South Florida by way of a number of different places. My parents were college professors. I went to public schools. I played football back in high school. And growing up, I wanted to build things. My dad on the side made furniture, and his dad was a tailor. And my mom was an urban planner. And I thought I was going to go into architecture, but I ended up getting a scholarship to go to Florida A&M University, and I got interested in finance because as I learned about it, it was like architecture for business, where I could sort of help build businesses. And then I went on. My first job was as an analyst in the mergers and acquisitions department at Goldman Sachs, which is this New York investment bank. Well, it's global, but it was based out of New York. And that's when the internet first sort of came onto the scene and companies were going public. And I saw some young people that, probably like me today, but I thought they were really young when I first met them, that they were building these new innovative companies that I'd never conceived that could be possible before. And it hit me like that's what I wanted to do as I got older and I progressed down my career. And so I ended up going to the Darden Business School, getting my master's of business administration, and became a founder of one of the first online payment companies in the country called Govolution. And our first client was the U.S. Treasury Department. And so we enabled citizens to pay fees, fines, taxes online with the U.S. federal government. And we worked with a bunch of banks. And, that was like my first commercial venture that I sold. Stepping back a little bit, my first actual sort of entrepreneurial endeavor was a social impact organization. When I was in high school back in Fort Myers, I went to Fort Myers High School, and I recall I was having a conversation one day with one of my teammates, and he, just to provide some background on him, his name is Barney Knight. He's actually a doctor today, and but at the time, he did not come from a family of means, but we were in our AP, I think it's like trig or calculus class, and he got an A. And I'm like, man, you're going to get a full scholarship to college. And he's like, what? It's like, my parents, I'm not going to college. I don't have any money for college. And so it hit me. I was like, dude, like, you're the smartest kid in this class. Like, how you're not going to go to college? And this was something that was impressed upon me from, when I was very young. And so I always had that sort of expectation, but Barney didn't, or didn't think that he had the means. Anyway, I started this organization called the Scholars Club, which is still around today, but now it's part of the Florida Gulf Coast University Public Outreach Program. And it's gone on to support some 100,000 kids across Southwest Florida from K through 12 and college. And the concept was to address this lack of information by people not knowing how to go to college and get scholarships. And so that was sort of the beginning for me. And I think everything that I've sort of done or been a part of before has really impacted people. And that's been part of my ethos in building businesses. My last venture before I started Fonbnk was it's called Leaf College Savings, and the concept was original concept was a gift card that could be redeemed into any college savings plan in the U.S. And so the research that I'd found and things that I was passionate about was that if a child has any amount of college savings, call it like $10 or $10,000 that they know about, they're up to 7 times more likely not just to go to college, but to graduate. And I thought that was really powerful. And sort of one of the sort of criteria that I evaluated in starting the venture was like, man, like, even if I failed and if I could help tens of thousands of families make college more accessible, that's a win in my mind. And I could always live with that. Well, we ended up selling the company to SoFi, which is now this publicly traded financial technology firm. And it's now their SoFi at Work platform. And now essentially what we do is it enables employers to provide college savings benefits, whether they be or college higher education benefits, whether it's college savings or student loan repayment, which is a big deal today, as part of your employee benefits, like a retirement, like 401k savings plan. But along the way, I got interested in this new technology called the blockchain. And in many respects, it had a similar type of parallel to the development of the internet. And I felt that it was going to be disruptive in the same way that the internet disrupted media and software, that the blockchain is going to disrupt centralized businesses like banks or anything that like what I call sort of centralized trust institutions, where like records management and potentially healthcare, where everything can be done with software. You don't have to go to a building with people in it if the software is used. And to me, that was a really powerful thing. And I went back and looked at the various ventures that I'd been involved in. Was like, okay, how can I apply this thing? And what was interesting about how I got into Fonbnk, not only have I done things in like financial technology, I also did a lot of things in wireless telecommunications too. So your mobile phone and all the technology used to build out those networks and even to power your phone. I have a patent from it's owned by Qualcomm now, and what Fonbnk is sort of the culmination of all those experience in terms of telecommunications and payments and the blockchain. And I think it's just as equally as disruptive. And so actually it's a funny founding story, but I kind of use this as a learning, in that whenever you start a business, it should be based on something an experience that you specifically had, and that maybe it's a problem or conundrum that you were in, and you're able to solve it. And then, in terms of like, I kind of gamify or play a game really about how I come up with businesses and solve for these problems. And so the founding of Fonbnk is no different. My brother-in-law took a vacation to Kenya about 3 years ago, and came back, and he had this SIM card. And if you don't know, a SIM card is that little card that you put in your phone that allows you to have your phone number and gives you access to the mobile carrier network, right? Every phone has them. And even if you don't see it or didn't see it getting installed, it's there. But in most parts of the world, it allows you to like carry your information around your mobile carrier network, and you might even have multiple phones or multiple SIM cards because it's a prepaid service. As many people, don't have a lot of money, so they have to like pay for mobile phone service as they go. Anyway, so he came back with this SIM card from his vacation, and he was telling me about how they could do all these really cool things, like transfer money or transfer the value of on the phone that allowed them to do talk, text, and data. They call it phone credits. And it's what you top up. You could transfer that P2P in addition to moving money around, right? What's interesting is many of these markets across Africa had this sort of like Venmo before Venmo existed in the States, literally by almost a decade. So they've been pretty innovative in terms of how they use technology, but what they didn't have is the blockchain. And so, long story short, he had this SIM. I was excited to see it because of all this functionality that he could do with his Kenya phone that we couldn't do here in the States. So I plugged the SIM card into my phone, and we saw that there was this balance remaining. It was like $10 or equivalent in Kenyan shilling. And he bet me that I couldn't resell that back to someone on the ground in Kenya. And as crazy as that might sound, like, I mean, we're both in Washington, D.C. and so forth, but if we were in Kenya, it wouldn't be a big deal. But because we're in Washington, D.C., it's kind of hard. I couldn't like go out on the street, or I didn't have friends in Kenya that could say, hey man, you want to buy $10 with airtime from me? So I created this solution where I just took out some ads on Facebook, right? I mean, you can do Facebook advertising in like a minimum of like, I think it's anywhere from $2 to $5 a day. And I target it to people that liked Safaricom, which is a mobile carrier, and M-Pesa, which is like the mobile money service or the Venmo service in Kenya, and actually kind of forgot about it. And like a day or two later, I was going to turn off the ad because I didn't want to spend any more money. And I noticed a couple people had responded. I was like, oh boy, like who knew that this people were going to take me seriously with this? So I invited them into a WhatsApp group, and I used his SIM card and the M-Pesa mobile money service to sell the airtime, and that's sort of the genesis of Fonbnk. And essentially, what we are is a type of on-ramp or a way to take cash, what they call fiat money, and convert it into digital money using prepaid airtime as the medium of exchange. And people use this term Web3. Well, Web1 is like the original internet, right? Like Google or Yahoo search, right? Web2 is like Airbnb or Uber. And Web3 is Bitcoin, Ethereum, the blockchain. And in many respects, it is a new innovative way. The killer app really is sort of money movement, especially in these parts of the world. And we're doing it in a way where we don't, we're building a new type of network. And the significance is that, we take having money and moving it around, like being able to send money person to person, anywhere in the country for granted. Like one way I like, one example I try to give is like, imagine the state that you lived in was a different country, and every other state in the US was a different country. And something like Netflix, they're based in California. Well, maybe if you lived in Atlanta, they're like, well, we don't accept Georgia credit cards or bank cards. So, you would have to figure out a way to like get a California bank card or bank account, so that you could pay for your Netflix account, or HBO's out of New York. And so you'd have to figure out a way to get money to like a New York bank to pay for your HBO. As you see, this can get really complicated. Well, that's how many people outside of the US, especially in Africa, what they have to do. And it's really expensive. And while there might be a ton of different companies that provide some type of service, they all require a traditional bank, and banks are kind of broken. And that's where we come into play, and using this thing called the SIM card, which is kind of like a key that unlocks the network of that mobile phone. And so this is MTN, but in the States, think like T-Mobile or AT&T, or Verizon. And so, but this key, it knows who you are, where you are. And as I mentioned, like it's prepaid, it has money on it. And in many cases, you can transfer that money to different people as long as they're in the same network. And because of that, we can actually turn this thing into a personal bank card that works everywhere in the world. And the significance of that is that, and most people don't realize it, but there's like 8 billion SIM cards. Like literally, I think there's like 8 billion people now on the planet. There's no other sort of financial product where that has the same amount of equivalent sort of install base or exists in the same way. The closest thing is mobile phones, right? And so if you want to provide financial inclusion to the most people in the world, you have to leverage something or utilize some type of network or technology that most people in the world have access to, and that is prepaid SIM cards. And this is the other interesting thing about the blockchain that most people don't realize, is that it's and how we work is that everything's a marketplace, right? So think like the New York Stock Exchange or eBay or Coinbase or Etsy, even the Amazon. That's a type of marketplace. Well, imagine if and this is kind of the world and the significance of the blockchain and cryptocurrencies. But imagine if you had like a Starbucks card or points, and you want to convert that into Amazon points. Well, as you can see today, there's no direct way to convert that. Well, but what you could do is you could sell your, your Starbucks points or card for dollars, and then you could buy maybe an Amazon card to buy something online with Amazon, right? Well, that's what we do behind the scenes to enable someone to take this value in one SIM card and then convert it into digital money. And we have hundreds of thousands of people across Africa that are doing this every day, real time. And so an example of how it might work is, imagine someone in Africa and they want to buy an NFT, right? And it could be like, I want to buy a Netflix account. I want to, pay for Spotify this month. Well, we have this app that essentially does that process behind the scenes of buying and selling, and then giving her value in this currency that allows her to buy her NFT. And again, the significance is that we can take that SIM card, that key that accesses your money and your phone, and make it do everything that a normal bank account does, and give this person access to dollars, which now they could, have be included in the global financial economy. And so we work all over Africa. We've had a lot of success. We have hundreds of thousands of users, which I think is a pretty amazing thing. And, again, like, I started my career at Goldman Sachs. I sold my last company to SoFi, and I have a team of people that have a lot of years of experience building technology companies and, working across Africa. Thanks. Back to you, Maury.
Thank you, Mr. Christian, for sharing your career with us today. Thank you for inspiring us with your journey. We would like to take the next few minutes to ask questions and allow you to share more details with us. Our student ambassadors will take turns interrogating you, so get ready. Hope.
Hi, Mr. Christian. When did you first know you wanted to be in your career?
Probably when I was in college, but, even along the way, I was always kind of a builder of things. And I remember I'd go to my dad's office, and it's one of those things where I think he was, most people would call it parenting, but he was babysitting me. He had to take me to work one day, and he's just like, here's a bunch of magazines, and it's his office. So there's just business magazines. So I would look at like pictures of the airplanes and trucks, and oil tankers. And I just thought that was really, really neat. And even as part of my play, I just wanted to build things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd always come up with these like interesting, like, projects, whether it was model planes and trains. And as I progressed down my career, like, I mentioned I wanted to be an architect, and I got into finance. It's because I thought stocks were really interesting, like investing. And in a way in which, like you could make money. And, I wasn't, let's put it this way. I played football and everything, but like I was more kind of nerdy than I was athletic. So I didn't go on to play pro ball or anything like that. But I ended up becoming a professional in finance and technology. And so I use that experience in business and finance to sort of catapult me to where I am today. But I've always sort of had this sort of creative bent where I've tried to leverage and build things. And what I'd say is, however big a company, an individual is, it starts really, really small. And in many cases, you can't like skip these steps. So I talked about that bet with my brother-in-law, and I went through that process. Well, most great businesses go through some small little processes like that, and events to get started to become big. So
that is honestly so inspiring to know that, like, since you were a child, you've been building stuff and like doing projects to make yourself better and everything like that. I think that's super cool.
Yeah,
Um,
but bear in mind what I
mhm.
know. In no way did anybody think it was remarkable, right?
Really?
I
Why?
just I just thought it was really cool, and
Oh.
I think at the end of the day, like, and my parents, they kind of let me. They probably rolled their eyes and shook their head a lot, but they're like, "Oh, you want to play this or do that? Fine." Uh, you know, but so like, I think another thing that I would leave you with is like, follow your passions. If you like stuff, just do it and do it really well, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. How do you make yourself irreplaceable in your field?
Again, I think it goes into your passion. If it's something that you love, like,
Mm-hmm.
as I tell I have a very young son, but it's like ice cream, right? Like, he loves ice cream. He eats ice cream all day long, right?
So do we.
Right,
That's
Lawson?
my favorite.
And so, but so your career should be like, your favorite ice cream. Like, don't do things that you're not passionate about, right? Because you're not going to study late at night. You're not going to want to meet people that can make you or help you in your career, right? And I think the what makes you irreplaceable is like, you've been in something, everybody, like they could put you on a call or a meeting like this, and you can just drop nuggets of information because you care about it, right? Like, I know people, I used to be that way, like, football stats, right? Even though I didn't play college ball, I knew all the stats for all the players, and it was just something I was excited about. I love college game day, and I just read the stats, and so I know all about the players on all the teams, and so forth. But I think that's what you have to do for your career. But it only works if it's something you like. Or
Exactly.
actually, let me. There's a nuance there. It's something you love, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like is maybe Brussels sprouts. Love is ice cream.
I love the way you connected ice cream to your career. I've never heard anyone connect it like that, but it makes so much more sense when you put it that way. It's so much more just I'm aware of like that's a must. You need to be passionate about what you're doing. So earlier I mentioned that you used to go to Florida A&M. How was your life like on campus and how did you stay focused?
Again, well, I'll be honest with you. So, I was honor society kid coming out of high school, and then I went to my first year of college, and it was the first time I actually, had been away from my family, and on my own. I had a dorm roommate, and I probably wasn't as focused as I should have been, and I had a scholarship, and I remember one day, Saturday morning, uh, I'm laying in bed, slept a little bit too late, and my roommate comes to me with the phone. This is back in the day when we didn't have mobile phones, so we had landline phones, and he's like, "I think it's your dad." And it would literally was like one of those cartoons where you heard like this sound coming out, and I was just like, "Whoa!" And he's like, "I got your report card, and it says you're on probation, and if you don't get your act together, you're gonna be in some deep trouble, Buster." And I was like, "Oh man!" Like, didn't want to let my dad down. I didn't want to let myself down. So I went to the library and I just started studying. And to be honest, like, I'd never like really learned how to study until I got into college. And so I uh spent a lot of time like, you know, flashcards, note cards, and I'd go to the library. And I also think that like going to an HBCU, it's a really nurturing environment. Like, I could take advantage of talking to professors. I'd have a couple of professors that like invited the really interested kids in the topics. They'd be like, "Hey, let's all go out to dinner," right? Or let's grab lunch. Let's talk, rather than like just coming to the office one-on-one, like let's, we'll sit down in the cafeteria and you can ask me your questions. And I thought that was a really unique experience that, I think was really impactful for me today, and got me to my first job at Goldman Sachs, which, in many respects, that experience enabled me to compete with kids from all Ivy League schools or any other school in the country or world for that matter, because I was in a very elite organization, and even within there, a very elite group, because of my FAMU experience.
So you
And by the way, I ended my career, my college. I went from literally a 2.8 GPA, and I ended it with a 3.8 GPA, summa cum laude. And I had to take some crazy classes where I had like 18 hours and you have to get straight A's. But again, I was studying something that I loved, right? And I wanted that so bad, and I made the investment in it. And if it was something I wasn't passionate about, I wouldn't have done that. Like, I'll leave you with this before we go on to the next question. Like, I thought like I was going to be this one guy. We'd have these these workshop sessions where you met, like career receptions where you met people. And there's this guy I met who's really persuasive, and he literally sold toilet paper for Procter & Gamble. And Procter & Gamble was a cool company, I thought, and everybody was working at Procter & Gamble. And I was like, I want to work at Procter & Gamble. And the guy's like, yeah, you could do this. I think you could sell some toilet paper. And I remember I had to take this test, and it asked me all these questions and everything. And I'm thinking about selling toilet paper, and I was like, this stinks. I couldn't do that. And I didn't do well on the test. And so I didn't get invited back at the interview. But conversely, there was this internship opportunity in finance. And so I, burned the midnight oil studying for that. And I aced the interview, and I got an internship at Goldman Sachs, and I got a job offer to come back after I graduated from college, and the rest is history. Otherwise, I'd be selling toilet paper I would have been selling toilet paper. Now I sell companies and ideas.
That's awesome. So you mentioned how you studied a lot in the libraries and everything. How did doing that teach you the importance of hard work?
What I'd say is like hard work for work's sake is a difficult thing, right? Like, there's digging ditches, right? That's actually really hard work, right? A lot of things maybe our parents or grandparents had to do to get us to where we are today. That was hard work. Sitting in an air-conditioned library focused on, academics, it's tedious. But what I did to sort of overcome that tedium was I tried to turn it into a game, right? Like, we've all played trivia games. Like, I bet if you played some type of Trivial Pursuit about like athletes or singers or whatever, you'd know the answers, right? So I tried to do that with my homework, and I'd create these flashcards where, I would write certain topics, and, I would just go through that over and over again, where then at, the end of an evening, it was like a game to me. And then if I'd be like, okay, if I can, get 100% on this, I can watch my favorite TV show, or I can go hang out with my friends later. If I don't, I got to do it until I get there. So to me, yeah, so that was that's how I played it. And I think it worked out well. And it was, and you got to remember, like, your brain is a muscle. And so in the same way people lift weights or go running, you have to do these types of things with your brain to get it to this world-class level.
Definitely. As I'm talking to you, I'm getting a great sense of identity. Have you ever struggled with identity? And if so, how did you figure out what your identity was, and how do you use that in your business?
That's a great question. And again, I would this is where going to a place like FAMU really made me confident about being who I was. I was always sort of the, you know, the odds black kid in like my honors or AP classes. I played sports, and I thought I was kind of popular. Probably not, but at least I thought I was. And but going to FAMU, I realized that I wasn't like alone, right? There are other people like me, which in some sense, it made me comfortable in who I was and allowed me to compete in a objective way, right? Like I didn't have to worry about like, oh, they're doing this because I'm a black person, or they're white people, they're not allowing me to do this. I could go anywhere, hang out with anybody. And it wasn't, and if they were hanging out with me or I was doing something, it wasn't because of like the color of my skin or my background. It's because they liked me or they thought I was smart. Like if you're in a place like FAMU or Howard or Morehouse, Spelman, and you're successful, they're like, there's no, that's my son in the background. It's almost nap time, but yeah, no. So from that, it gave me a lot of confidence, and to be confident about who I was, where I'm from, everything about my identity, and I love it. I'm proud of it, right? And I wear it on my shoulder every day. I took a 23andMe, which I encourage everybody to do, but like just to understand sort of like where your cultural identity is. Like that's why like I'm spending time in Africa, because we're all, if you're African American, your roots are there. Your peoples are there. Like I'm from Jamaica, and I go back, and it's this amazing experience to go back. But I also think at the end of the day, it's important to be confident about who you are, know where you came from, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise, because that's what's going to make you strong in the future.
Definitely. When was a time in your professional career that you failed, and what did you learn about being resilient?
That's a great question, and in many respects, like I've failed at answering that question many times in my career. Candidly, a lot of that, and I'll encapsulate many of these experiences in sort of one. I call it expectations management, right? Like it's where people get into trouble, and definitely young professionals, is they don't manage expectations, right? And what I mean by that is if you have a job and someone's like, hey, Hope, I'd love for you to like, here's this opportunity for you, and this is what you need to do to get there, and you study it, and maybe you don't ask questions, right? And you try to struggle along, and you might have said, hey, look, I can get it done in a day or 2 days, right? And your boss goes along and and they're not thinking anything of it, and then maybe something important comes up, and she's like, oh, hey, Hope, where's that assignment that you said that you were going to complete? Is it done? And you're like, I didn't complete it because I didn't understand. And she's gonna be like, Hope, like you said you could do it at this time, and you didn't ask any questions along the way. Like, and I've had, I'm not perfect. I've had a lot of experiences like that. And in some cases I, after maybe failing in that way a few times, I'm probably stubborn, and maybe I'll just spend all night, figuring it out, and this is even before the internet sometimes, so you have to call around to like get the answers. And so I think managing expectations, and what I mean by that is like ask questions and be realistic and candid with your colleagues, definitely your boss, and just say, look, I don't know, or help me understand this particular piece of what I don't know. And maybe a good sort of framework or tool set for that is, think about it as like a puzzle, right? And you can look at it and you're like, all right, I can figure out like these, there's 5 pieces. I can figure out 3 of the 5 pieces. And so you can kind of sketch that out really quickly and go to your boss and be like, hey, look, I got these 3 pieces, but these last 2 pieces I'm having a little bit of trouble with. And it might take me a little bit of time, right? And then they can be like, oh, well, this is all you have to do. Da, 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 da. And you're like, oh, I didn't see that, how to twist the shape in that way to fit it in the puzzle, right? And that's, and when you can sort of be proactive that way, because what that does is kind of show like what you can do and what you know, and then it illustrates sort of the gaps in sort of what you may not know, and so you manage their expectation. And then you can figure out sort of like, all right, this is what it'll take to fill in these particular gaps. And that's how you should progress and every type of conversation like that, where you're not 100% confident about what you should do and how you should do it in a career. And candidly, if there's something that has gotten me into trouble a lot of times, it's that.
I love that you mentioned asking questions, especially because, sometimes I talk fast or I stutter. So sometimes, I become unconfident when it comes to speaking up, but then I'm working on confidence and speaking up, even when, I have the insecurity around just stuttering and talking fast. So that was very inspirational for me, because it reminded me to keep asking, and stuttering and, talking fast is a part of life. And, we all have insecurities to work on, but questions are something that I think it could be like a guide, like to a pathway. And I'm definitely gonna take that with me throughout the rest of my high school career. Thank you so much for letting us interrogate with you these questions. We learned so much from your wisdom, and I love being able to interview you. This was amazing. I'm going to hand it over to my co-host, Moira.
Thank you, Mr. Christian.
Hey, Moira.
Thanks, Christian, for joining us today. Lieutenant General Bruce Crawford has a few words.
An amazingly inspiring story. I took away many lessons from this, but one of the big ones, that there's literally no substitution in addition to hard work. So things like hard work are also important, but there's no substitute for creativity and innovation, because I heard a lot of innovation in your message. And so, as a nation, there's no doubt that our future competitive advantage is going to be heavily influenced by our willingness as a country to invest in our next greatest generation of leaders. There are going to be many challenges that are there, but I believe the great equalizer is going to be really 2 things. One is awareness, and the other is the fact that it's awareness that leads to opportunity. And so in sharing your lessons, specifically about solving problems, you talked about that you can't skip steps on your journey. Another key thing that struck me was this big idea that you've got to follow your passion and don't do things that you don't love. That also struck me. As an HBCU graduate, it also warmed my heart that you talked about the nurturing environment, but you also talked about this big idea of at an HBCU, you can gain confidence, and you can also discover your true identity. And the last piece that I took away, which I talk to people about also, it's all about resiliency and being able to get up when you're knocked down, because in life, those things are going to happen to you. So thanks so much for sharing your story, for the just inspiring message that you delivered today. And so in closing out our last session of calendar year 22, again, just wanted to thank you and our audience for joining us today. And with that, back over to Hope and Joy.
Thank you all who joined us for Career Day with Mr. Chris. We hope you were inspired and will walk away with more knowledge. Remember to visit STEM City USA and plan to attend the BEYA Mediquake Symposium in February 2023. We will host another live career day at the symposium. We look forward to seeing you there.
We would also like to give a very special thanks to our Career Day sponsor, Lockheed Martin. They are known for their groundbreaking work in aerospace, arms defense, information security, and technology around the world. Lockheed Martin also recently opened their suite in STEM City USA. We are very excited to have them on STEM City USA team. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and join us. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Have a great weekend.
Calling all future STEM pioneers, leaders, and career champions. Join us on every second Saturday of the month for the BEYA Career Day. BEYA STEM Career Day is all about creating opportunities for students to venture into the world of STEM through the eyes of professionals. You'll meet mentors and presenters that will give you a sneak peek into the many options available to you in the field of STEM. Hosted by teen ambassadors, you'll find yourself among inspiring peers just like yourself that are aiming high for their future. To take part in the BEYA STEM Career Day on Zoom, visit fullstemhead.us and register for the next session. Again, that's fullstemhead.us. BEYA, becoming everything you are.